This lecture may be injurious to your sentiments. It may incur rational sense in you. Watch at your own discretion. Your sentiments are not my liability. Hello, this is Hrisikesh, and you are welcome to my channel, Hrisikesh Lectures. Education is quintessential for any civilization to sustain its civil sense. Observing the calamitous condition of the education system and realizing the urgency to spread education as far as one can, I have started to lecture on YouTube. As far as authenticity is concerned, I have a first-class master's degree in English literature and I am UGC NET qualified. My lectures are long and detailed as a real classroom lecture should be. Also, most of my lectures are available on YouTube Music as podcasts. And if you like the way I try to educate, consider liking, sharing and subscribing to the channel so that the algorithm gets it to more and more students of literature. With all this being said, let's begin today's lecture. So today's lecture is about Robert Browning's poem My Last Duchess, which is a very famous poem by Browning. It is a dramatic monologue, and I hope that if you have come here, you're expecting a detailed lecture, not a summary. You have a notebook and a pen as well as the text in front of you. I also hope that you have at least once read the text. Now we can begin. This is going to be a long and detailed lecture. If you give me patience and attention, I assure you that you will understand the poem thoroughly and you will not forget it. You will not have to memorize things. It will be in your memory. You will understand the thing and you will be able to explain it to others, even if you want to explain. So, this is My Last Duchess, a dramatic monologue by Robert Browning. It was first published in 1842. And I am not talking about the poet because I have already discussed about Robert Browning and the form dramatic monologue in the episode 1 of this playlist. So moving on to the poem itself. Okay, so this is a specimen of Victorian British literature, and it was published in 1842, as I have already mentioned. So in this poem, as a dramatic monologue should be, we have a speaker and a silent listener. Now, you are often told that this is the Duke of Ferrara speaking and an envoy listening to him. But how do you get such information? By analyzing the poem itself, not by memorizing it because somebody has told you so. No, let us just look at the text, and if we read carefully and explain, understand every line, analyze every line, understand every line, and we'll understand who is the speaker, who is the listener, what he is talking about, everything will be neat and clean. Let's just start. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. Now, first of all, there is on the top of the poem, there is a place mentioned, Ferrara. It's the name of a place. It's in Italy. It's mentioned at the top of the poem. It is unusual, isn't it? Because in case of plays, the setting is mentioned. But in case of poem, we are not habituated with this. So why does Browning do that? Just to denote that this is taking place in a particular city, in a particular country, so that we can understand the speaker's identity. Now the speaker speaks, that's my last Duchess. Focus on the word my, that means first person singular pronoun in the possessive case. It's not our last Duchess, it's not their last Duchess, it's my last Duchess. And it's not my daughter, it's not my mother, it's not my sister, it's my last duchess. That means I am the duke, and that's why I am referring to her as my last duchess, not our last duchess. Okay. So I am the husband. Now the thing is last duchess. The adjective is last duchess. That means that it denotes that somehow she is past. She belongs to the past now, and perhaps the duke is waiting for something in present. Otherwise, the word last. Why would he say last duchess? Also, point to be noted that he is not saying my late wife, my late beloved wife. He is referring to my last duchess in a very formal tone, not in a very loving way. That is to be noted here. So the duke is not mentioning his wife as his last wife, late wife, beloved wife, no, but last duchess, painted on the wall. So the duke, because she is the duchess, and because the speaker is referring to her as my last duchess, so he is the duke. Duke of which place? So the place is mentioned, Ferrara, Duke of Ferrara. Thus we get the information that this is the Duke of Ferrara who is speaking. So he is showing to someone, we don't know yet who, to someone that there is a painting, and he is pointing at the painting and showing that person that that's my last duchess, painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. Now, there are some critics who say that we don't know what happened to the duchess. Perhaps she was imprisoned, perhaps she was exiled, perhaps she was sent to a madhouse. We don't know for sure that she was murdered. I beg to differ, because in this line it is clearly said as if she were alive. As far as I know English grammar, when a conditional is put in this way, that a singular pronoun is followed by a verb which is naturally used with plural sense, then it means that the condition is not true. If you don't know, I am explaining it to you. If you study the structure of a conditional sentence in English grammar, you will see that there are two kinds of ways in which I can say if I was or if I were. Those two different kinds of sentences have two different implications. Like if I say, if I was there, why didn't you tell me? That means I was there. I am complaining that I was there. The condition is true. If I was there, but you didn't tell me, that's why I am asking. If I was there, why didn't you tell me? So I was there, that is true, but you didn't tell me, that's why I am complaining. And if I say, if I were there, wouldn't I have done it? That means I was not there. If I were, that is a possibility. But in this case, that is not true. I was not there. So, if I were there, wouldn't I have done this? That means I was not there, and that's why I could not do the particular task. I am, giving my excuse that I was absent there. So, in that case, when I am referring to a possibility, but it is not actually true, it is not what happens, it is not what happened, then we use the verb form were after a singular pronoun or singular noun. So, if she were alive, that means she being alive is not a true fact. It is a distant possibility. She is not alive. That proves she is dead. As far as I know English grammar, That is conclusive. But if you know better than me, point it in the comments. Okay. Now, moving on. I call that piece a wonder now. There is a pause. There is a comma. Before that now there is a comma. I call that piece a wonder now. Now, if I say I call that piece a wonder now, that now has no stress. But if I say I call that piece a wonder now, that now has a stress, an emphasized meaning, means that I did not call that piece a wonder up until some point, but now I call that piece a wonder. That this particular now is very important to me, that I am calling this piece a wonder. So, why? Why is the Duke considering this piece a wonder now, at present? Because the Duchess is not alive. Perhaps the picture, the portrait is helping him to remember his beloved wife. Perhaps that's why. Is it? We have to question ourselves and we have to read on. And then we'll find, is the Duke missing the Duchess, his beloved wife? That's why. Is it the reason that he calls this piece now a wonder? We can understand that as we carry on. Fra Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Now, Fra Pandolf, we don't know who he is, but we know for sure one thing, that Fra means friar, means a monk. Now, who is a monk? A monk is somebody who has taken the vow of celibacy. That means he can never have physical intimacy with anyone. He has taken a vow against it. And that's how he becomes a monk. Now, why a monk? Perhaps monks paint better, I don't know. Or is there some kind of other reason behind this employing a monk to paint the portrait of the Duchess? We have to think about it. Let that question kept aside for this moment and carry on. Busily a day. Was he a very busy person, that he could not afford much time if he needed? That's why he had to work busily. Or did some kind of pressure was there? Was some kind of pressure there for the painter to paint busily within a day? That's the question, because it is the Duke's wife, the Duchess, he was painting. So, if the Duke wanted him to paint thoroughly and take much time, he would have to do that, because Duke is a powerful position, right? So perhaps the Duke wanted it to be done within a day, and perhaps that's why he had to work busily to complete the painting within that time limit. Otherwise, why he would work busily and complete the painting in a day? Right? So that's a question, again, we have to think about. There she stands. There she stands. She is not alive. Her portrait is there. There she stands. There is some kind of, a kind of pride in that I employed a painter. The painter worked only for a day, and there she stands. There is a difference between she and her portrait. But the speaker mentions as if the person is standing there, as if a painter can reproduce the person in a way that It leaves no difference between the person and the portrait. To the Duke, as if the person is there. He says in such a tone, so, will't please you sit and look at her? Now, will't please you. There is a please. So, this is, we can say, a very polite way of asking someone to do something. But what is he asking? He is asking him, the listener, to sit and look at the portrait. There are many things we can get from this line. First of all, the politeness. Now remember, when a duke is being polite, a duke is, of course, he has immense power in his area. He doesn't need to command. His politeness is command, right? And what he is asking the listener to do, to sit and look at her. Look at the portrait. As if it is her. As if it is the Duchess. Look at it closely. You have to look at it. Why? Because the Duke loves the Duchess so much that he is, obsessed with the painting and he wants to talk about his beloved wife. Is this so? He wants the listener to look at his beautiful wife and, he wants to talk about her. Is this it? Let's continue. I said, Frappendolf, by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I, and seemed as they would ask me, if they durst, how such a glance came there. So, not the first are you to turn and ask me thus. A long sentence. Let's take it part by part. I said Frappendolf by design. So the name Frappendolf is a fictitious name. I just made up that name. Why? Why did I create a fake name for an artist? Somebody, of course, painted that. Why couldn't I take the name of the original artist? Why did I take a fake name, a made-up name? Crucial point. And then, why? He explains, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and etc. That means, if I don't take such a heavy name, strangers like you, not so knowledgeable, not so much expert admirer of art, will not focus enough on the painting. So the Duke, according to the Duke's logic, I have to make up a name heavy enough to gain your concentration towards the portrait. To me, the portrait is something valuable, a wonder. But to you, you are a stranger. So, strangers like you. The Duke is mentioning the listener as a stranger. Now, of course, he may be a stranger. Stranger is not a bad word, but if you are talking to someone and if you use the phrase strangers like you are not showing respect to the person, are you? So that is something to think about. That tone is a kind of proud tone. That I am someone who knows and admires some kind of art, and strangers like you never understand this, so I have to make up a name that is heavy enough for you to concentrate on the picture, on the portrait. That says that the Duke is not interested or respectful even towards the artist. I mean, for example, If I admire a particular painting, suppose the Mona Lisa, and if I am showing to you that painting, just because you don't understand art, suppose, is it correct that I would like to tell you the name of the artist and then say to you that because that artist made that painting, this painting is great? No. What is created is great in its own qualities. The creator is great because he could create it. We do not admire a product because somebody has made that product. We do not admire a statement because Shakespeare said it or Rabindranath said it. No. Rabindranath became Rabindranath because he could say that. That statement was itself of a quality, and that makes Rabindranath qualified. So, the artist is as good as his art. If I try to forget or try to, just ignore the name of the original artist and pretend that if I take a made up name, perhaps somebody will give more attention to the art, then I am not respecting the artist, perhaps even not the art itself, and I am not respecting the audience either, the person who is looking at it. I am just saying that you are a moron, you don't understand anything, and I have to create fictitious names so that you, persons like you, who are not so much knowledgeable, not so much expert as me, can give some attention to such a great work which I understand as great, but you don't have the capability to understand as great. That kind of, derogatory sense is there. Condescending sense is there, belittling the person next to him. So the Duke is a kind of an authoritative figure as far as we understand up to this point, who takes pride in being whatever he himself is, and who focuses on talking to a man and calling him strangers like you don't understand if I don't take fictitiousness, etc. So he is neither respecting the artist nor the visitor. So then he mentions the qualities of the painting, such as the pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance. Nobody can read those expressions, those complicated nuances that are there in the painting, unless I take a heavy name and I tell them to focus on it. They do not get it. So I can look at it and I can admire all the details of that painting, all the nuances, complex features of the painting. But to myself they turned. So they do not understand. The strangers like you, they do not understand anything about, how great this piece of art is. So they always look at me in a curious way. Since none puts by, this is very crucial, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I. So no one has the permission to draw the curtain aside that covers the portrait of the Duchess. Only the Duke can draw the curtain aside. Why? Perhaps the Duke loves his beloved wife so much that he covers it up. Curtains. He uses curtains and covers it up and just wants to look at her only for himself, it is allowed to look at her, or perhaps he doesn't want anybody to look at her because, possessive love, perhaps. We don't know. But we for sure know that this is peculiar. That the Duke tries to keep the curtain covering the portrait unless he wants it to be drawn. He draws it by himself, and unless he wants it to be seen by anyone else, nobody can see it. This is a kind of course, at least we can say that this is possessiveness to a peculiar degree, right? And seemed those persons, strangers, who are shown the portrait, they always seem to, as if they would ask me if they durst. This is again important. Durst, it's archaic, it's archaic word, it's a form, past form of dare. So if they dared to ask me, they did not have the courage, they did not dare to ask me. That the tone, the Duke uses a tone that, in their looks, in the looks of those strangers, I find the curiosity, but they did not dare to ask me. They wanted to ask me. What? This is completely going on in his mind. We don't know for sure that the strangers wanted to ask him. Okay, we'll discuss this in detail. Don't worry. That after we finish this text, we'll have to discuss a lot. Why this? Why that? Okay. So, if they durst, but the tone of the Duke proves that because the Duke is such a powerful person, his social position is at the top. So, a stranger, even if he is curious, he could not dare to ask him. And the Duke enjoys that, and that's why he says, if they durst, they would, as if they would ask me. What? How such a glance came there? That means in the Duchess's look, there is a blushing tone in her expression, and the glance, the look the Duchess gives. So, how such a glance came there? That is the question. The Duke thinks that this question haunts the strangers who look at the picture. We don't know for sure what kind of curiosity it causes, but we'll get it. Don't worry, we'll get it. So, not the first are you to turn and ask thus, sir. Now, peculiar thing about dramatic monologue is that the listener never talks. We'll have to understand his expressions through the speaker's speech. So the speaker here, the Duke says that it is not that you are the first person who are looking at me in this curious way. All the strangers do this. So for sure we get one point that the listener is curious in some fashion about the portrait. Why? The Duke thinks that it is about the delicate and complicated nuances of the portrait that has got the attention of the listener. But we'll have to judge it on our own. If the listener had looked in a curious way towards the Duke, what was the actual cause? We'll get to it. We'll understand it as we finish the poem. Okay, so, Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek. Perhaps Fra Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. So, perhaps the painter complimented her. Perhaps the painter said that your mantle is covering too much of your wrist. Your wrist is beautiful and I want to paint that. So, it's been covered up too much. Perhaps he was referring to her beauty. Perhaps he was saying that I am trying to paint, but you are so much beautiful that paint cannot reproduce your beauty. That half flush, etc. Okay, that dies along her throat. That means half flush, blushing color that dies along her throat. So, a kind of what should I say? A kind of light color, red kind of glow on the fair skin. So the beauty is being referred to here. And of course, if I have paid a painter to paint my wife, and if I am the duke, such a powerful person, and if the wife, the duchess, and the painter is just a monk and employed under me for this evening, of course you would say such things that, oh, you are so beautiful, how can I reproduce your beauty in my painting, I am just a painter. That is a courtesy. According to the duke, a painter says all these things. But for her, this was too much. According to the duke, this was enough for her to smile, to blush. Cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. I mean, a kind of blush there, a kind of, smile. And when we smile, there are, crease, etc. So, then the duke goes on. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whate'er she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. She had a heart, how shall I say, as if he is trying to make something vulgar as polite as possible. She had a heart, but I am trying to make it polite as possible because I don't want to, say it in a vulgar fashion, that she used to smile and, behave as glad as possible. Too easily impressed. She was too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on. She liked everything and her looks went everywhere. That means she looked around and she was happy about her life and whatever was around her. She was a happy person and showing, even if it was false, showing a kind of glad and pleasant smile towards everybody and everyone around her. And according to the duke, that is a point of, she had a heart, how shall I say. So he is actually trying to say something as if it is negative about the Duchess, but as if he is trying to make it as polite as possible because it is beyond his, below his dignity to say such things. That's why that, how shall I say, that part is there. How shall I say? Okay. As if he is feeling ashamed to speak about all these things. Sir, 'twas all one, my favour at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. So, according to the duke, if everyone and everybody gets a smile and approving speech, then everything and everybody is of equal value to her. Because, according to him, she smiles at, my favor at her breast. That means, literally, if you want to understand this phrase, literally, you can say that perhaps a necklace the Duke gave the Duchess. So, favor at her breast. Or, you can say metaphorically that because the Duke, according to the Duke loved her, she was his wife, so his favor at her breast means heart here, metaphorically. So, you can understand it in you can explain it in both the ways, literally and metaphorically. My favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west. So, a natural phenomenon. Some officious fool, look at the word choices. Some officious fool, some strange, stupid person, just a servant or a kid, whatever. Somebody you can ignore, being in the position of a duchess. So, some officious fool, perhaps, from the orchard has, got some cherries for her. And a white mule she rode with round the terrace. So an animal, an officious fool, the natural phenomenon of sunset, and my favor, all are equal to her. Why is the Duke explaining it in this way? Because the Duchess used to smile and be pleasant and be glad and show her courtesy towards all these things equally. And that is the problem for the Duke, that I am special. You have to smile more to me than you can smile at the sunset. That kind of mentality is there. You have to understand it. That all and each would draw from her like the approving speech or blush, at least a blush or approving speech. So if it's a human or perhaps the mule, then she would give an approving speech that yes, thank you, perhaps. Or if it is the sunset and whatever, so she would just blush maybe. But this is the problem for the Duke. She thanked men, good, but thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift. Now the character is, very clear in front of us. The Duke's problem is, she thanked men, good. I cannot object to that. Being thankful is good. But you cannot thank in the same fashion you thank me. There should be a degree of thanking. That is a servant. That is an officious fool. That is just a sunset. You cannot blush at it or be thankful towards it in the same way you are blushing or being, thankful towards me, because I am the great husband. I did a favor to you by marrying you. I did a favor to you by marrying you because I gifted you with a name, a 900 years old name, that is my family name. You are ranking that kind of a favor with a sunset? With an officious fool's, gift of cherries? With the mule? No, I should be special. I should have the larger smile. I should have the most approving speeches. I should be thanked more than anybody else because I did a favor. I gave you the 900 years old family name because women in a patriarchal society, what can I say? They are thought of in this fashion even today. We'll talk about it later. I think you understand what I am pointing at. So, The Duke continues, who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? So these are, trifling matters, lowering your dignity. These are not very much right for a person in our position. So who would stoop, who would get down to that level to discuss such lowly matters, frankly, because it is, it is below our dignified position. So the Duke cannot even clearly blame the Duchess because he doesn't want to talk about such a vulgar topic. So smiling, being thankful, being approving or pleasant towards everybody is such a vulgar thing to do, according to the Duke, that he cannot even discuss it with his wife. He cannot even say, and he says that, even had you skill in speech, even if you had, if you are eloquent with words, which I have not, I do not have that kind of skill, although we have got that he is very skillful. The way he says, I know not how, she thanked men good, I know not how, or she had a heart, how shall I say, that kind of intonation is there. He is very much skilled with his speech, we know that already. But he says, which I have not. Even if you had skill in speech, which I have not, being polite, to make your will quite clear to such an one means such a wife, such a disgraceful person, to make your will quite clear to such a person that you are making a mistake, just this or that in you disgusts me, just this particular behavior of yours, this particular characteristic of yours disgusts me, or here you miss, or here or there exceed the mark. So here you are lacking and there you are exceeding. If you point it out, even if you had that skill with speech, and even if you could point it out to such a wife, where she exceeds, where she lacks, what is her limitations, and what you do not like, or what quality in her disgusts you, even if you had that skill to discuss, and if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours forsooth and made excuse, e'en then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. So if you had that skill, and if you discussed with that skill what disgusts you, what quality of her disgusts you with her, so if you discussed that with her, even after that, if she just accepted what you said without any without arguing, even if she accepted whatever you had to say, or if she explained why she did what she did, in both the cases, that means if you have skill, if you discuss, whatever the outcome is, she listens or argues, that is below the dignity of me being a duke. Even then would be some stooping. Stooping means going below the level that you are supposed to be. Lowering your head and going down to that level. So losing your dignified position, being frank with somebody, according to the Duke, is below his dignity. I cannot discuss such vulgar things with a wife, such wife. I cannot go down Because I am a dignified person, I cannot stoop. I choose never to stoop. So considering all the possibilities, her accepting his discussions, her not accepting his discussions and explaining why she does so, all the possibilities, he is not just interested in explaining to his wife what he likes about her and dislikes about her. So in a marriage, the husband is not interested about talking to the wife frankly, and he is the great husband, the duke. And what happens in such marriages? They are everywhere around us. So, ego. I am not going to explain what I want, but I want this. And if I don't get this, what would I do? I would act in a very cruel way, and the duke does. He expresses his jealousy, his ego being hurt. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her. But who passed without much the same smile? So that's his problem. Who passed without much the same smile? This grew. I gave commands. Then all smiles stopped together. A climactic form of expression. This grew, that means that vulgar habit of smiling towards everyone equally grew, kept growing. I gave commands. What kind of commands? We already know the Duchess is not alive. Then all smiles stopped together. That means the Duchess was executed. Remember King Henry the Eighth, who married 6 times, and 2 of his wives were beheaded. Right? So even today, if you look around, you'll find in our society what happens. I am not only mentioning our society, in a patriarchal society, wherever it is. Even today, women are treated. I'm not only talking about women. Yes, there are other problems too, but especially in a patriarchal society, women are objectified. Even today, they are burned because of dowry. They are tortured because a patriarchal society believes that the male has all the authority over them, etc. So relate life to this text. Connect it, life and the text, and you will understand why this text is relevant to you. There she stands as if alive. Again, he mentions, there she stands as if alive. So supporting the statement, all smiles stop together, there she stands as if alive. So she is not alive. I am again and again saying she is not alive. Some critics say that maybe she was imprisoned. We don't know what were the comments. No. She is not alive. And that's why he again and again says, as if alive. Wilt please you rise again, that politeness. But after all these statements, this person is a dangerous person. You are the listener. Is this a polite request to you? Wilt please you rise? No. This is a tiger yawning in front of you, as if it is not, being dangerous to you. But you know what it is capable of. It is the duke. Now the question is, who are you? Who is the listener here? We'll meet the company below then. So they are going to meet a company, some people below, downstairs. If you rise, that means you have to rise, and now we have discussed about the Last Duchess, and now we have to go down. and meet the company. I repeat, the count your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretence of mine for dowry will be disallowed. Though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. Very, it is basically circumlocution. Basically, a simple statement said in a very complicated diplomatic way, that because your master is the count and because of his munificence, his reputation, I believe that no just amount of pretense, munificence is ample warrant. So his reputation, his munificence, because he is the count, your master is the count. So who are you? You are the envoy of the count. So your master is the count, his reputation, social position is ample warrant, is a guarantee that no just pretense, this just means rightful pretense. So pretense of mine for dowry. So I have a position, I have a just amount of demands. I don't have to say it, but what is right amount for a duke to get as dowry from the count. So that pretense, I think, is guaranteed that it won't be hurt. I think I won't have to say what you should give me as dowry. Now this is the most dangerous. Asking for dowry is one thing. I am not supporting dowry. Anyway, dowry is, of course, it's a bad thing. Everybody knows that. But there is another thing going on. In our educated society, people are not directly asking for dowry, but saying that, I am not asking for anything, but if you give for your daughters, good, that's up to you. That is more dangerous thing, because the father of the daughter will never know what you are expecting, and he will give everything in the fear that perhaps you expect more, because you have not disclosed your expectation. That is, in a very diplomatic way, a more dangerous thing. Dowry is itself bad. That is worse. Not disclosing, not if you are making a deal. If in a patriarchal society, marriage is a deal. It is nothing else. It is a contract, it is a business, it is a deal. It is a give and take, nothing else. It has no love, it has nothing. Okay, so in that case, if you are making a deal, you should make clear that what I am expecting and what you are capable of. If the deal is to be done, it will be done. But no, some people are more sophisticated, more diplomatic. I am not disclosing what I should expect. I am playing as if I am guaranteed by your reputation that you won't dishearten me. Now it's up to you how much bankrupt you can become. Right? So, just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed. Okay, fine. Though, again, in today's fashion, I am not asking for dowry. Dowry is not my primary objective. My primary objective is the daughter of the count. But I am expecting that I won't have to say anything about what I expect as dowry, because your master is a reputed person, is in a position, in a powerful position in the society. Nay, we'll go together down, sir. That means the envoy who was listening to him is perhaps already, starting to go down or wanting to go alone as far as possible towards that company, to meet that company before the Duke. Perhaps he is trying to go down, and the Duke is, just, nay, we'll go together down, sir. You cannot go alone, we'll go together. So you cannot go down and warn your master. Why is the envoy trying to go down before the Duke? Of course, he is frightened about the Duke's character. Naturally, he wants to give some signal perhaps to his master, or at least he wants to get far from this person as fast as possible. Perhaps that, I don't know. But he is not feeling very comfortable in front of this person, and that's why he's trying to go away as fast as possible. And nay, we'll go down together, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse, thought a rarity, which Klaus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. Me is very important. My Last Duchess, Klaus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. Me, and I am very important here. And this is a great symbol. Neptune is a sea god. And there is a statue cast in bronze, a sculpture, whatever you call it, cast in bronze there. Another piece of art. And in that statue, the sea god Neptune is taming a seahorse. So an animal is being tamed by the sea god. A sea animal, a creature, is being manipulated by the master, the god of the seas. This is a symbol. The relationship between the husband and the wife in a patriarchal society, as far as the Duke is concerned, is that of Neptune and the seahorse. Neptune taming the seahorse. This is a symbol. That is his mindset, symbolically put forth by the poet. Klaus of Innsbruck, we know this Duke is a very pretentious person. So this is again a fictitious name. He takes a heavy name so that someone gives it a notice, gives it a look, gives it attention enough. This person has a peculiar character, which I'll discuss in the next part of the lecture, about the Duke, about the Duchess, about the relevance of the poem, about everything. I'll discuss in the next part. This is just the line by line analysis. This is the first part of the lecture of this poem, about this poem. So I think I have made clear the analysis of the lines, and you know what to do: like, share and subscribe, etc. Thank you. Join in the next part.